All right, we're going to have some people start joining now. Let's get some panelists going. Hey, Jason, how you doing? Lou, he's going to be joining now. All right. Katie's there.
Hey guys.
How's it going, man?
What's up?
What's up?
How are we doing?
Hi, how you doing?
Hey.
We're just running a couple minutes back, but we're going to extend this panel. So I already told the guys after us, we're going to run 5 to 10 minutes late. So all is good. I'm just going to wait for 2 more people to join.
No problem.
What's going on, guys?
Love it. I feel like
Can't win.
there's going to be a few of the kids coming on board or husbands coming on board. So I totally excited about that. Okay, let's see who else. Okay, we got Jose. Just gonna Kirby.
Are we on there? Or are we just hanging out, or?
We're just hanging out, man.
All right, cool. I want to know what I can and can't say.
No. We're starting now, so clean it up.
What up, man?
Nope.
Katie, hi. We've never met before, but pleasure to be virtually introduced.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you. How's everyone doing?
Quarantining.
Yeah.
Self-isolating. Not too much fun.
All right, guys. Kirby, welcome.
Hey guys, what's up? Nice to meet you.
Hey.
Not too much. Okay, so listen, we're running a few minutes behind, but I'm excited to have each of you here. I explained in the first panel that, we raised $10,000 as part of this initiative, 10,000 Canadian. So I know a lot of you in the US, that's pocket change, but we're excited about it anyways to help food banks across North America. So thank you for coming. We're excited to start this conversation because all of you have very different backgrounds. You're all in different positions. But some of you might have had linear paths. Some of you might have had non-conventional paths. I would just love to hear your stories to start with. And maybe Katie, we could start with you and kind of share how you got to the role you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Katie Carew. I am the Director of Corporate Partnerships at the New York Giants. And really my path started in college athletics. I was a swimmer at Siena College, and I was a member of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. And through that experience, I was able to work closely with our athletic department and also with the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, and realized that you could actually work in college sports when you were done with school. So I started working out at the MAC, and through that experience, I ended up in sponsorship and learning a little bit about what goes into doing that. And after working at the league, I pivoted and moved to a technology service provider called ANC Sports, where I helped as an account manager to manage their accounts like Hankook Tire and Lumber Liquidators. You'd see a lot of them behind home plate in Major League Baseball games or on LED courtside signage in the NBA. And then from there, I realized that there was a need to measure the value of those signage assets, and discovered a company called Gum Gum Sports that measures that value, and realized that they had a sales opportunity there and thought it was a really good move to make. And from Gum Gum, I ended up presenting actually to the New York Giants about our product, and then ended up at the Giants about 6 months later. So have been around a little bit, but that's okay when you're working in sports.
I could jump in too. I'm Lou Frangella. I'm a senior manager on the partnership activation team at Major League Baseball. I guess I went to Fordham University. I actually went in as a poli-sci major because I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And then pretty quickly after the first semester, realized that I had a little bit of a knack for business and an interest in business. So made the switch to the business school. And from there, towards the end of sophomore year, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. but ended up coming across a friend on campus one day who had told me that she had just got an internship with the MLB Fan Cave. I'm not sure if most of you are familiar with what that was, but MLB created a kind of a social media / content production hub that lasted a couple of years. It was really interesting. So I had asked her for the email of the person that hired her, sent an email, and within a week had an internship there. Rolled that into a couple of other internships, which was great. My week of graduation at Fordham, I would say, was my final round of interviews with the MBA associate program. So I worked really hard, had probably 6 or 7 internships, felt really good about this, and ended up not getting the job. So graduated without a job, was really bummed, pretty devastated. But luckily along the way with all my internship experience, along with some other things I did at Fordham, which I'll talk about a little later on, was able to use my network and pass my resume along to a colleague that sent it over to the New York Islanders. And that's how I got my first job in sports, and actually on the sponsorship team with the Islanders before they moved over to Brooklyn. From there, I think, a lot of, I'm always a person that looks at opportunity and also, I guess investing in people. And if I believe in something and there's an opportunity there, I'm one to kind of go after it. So my career background, I've had experiences with the agency side, the team side, the property side. I actually was in real estate for a little bit, but actually in the sponsorship activation side, which is kind of a new vertical. And about a year ago, made my way over to Major League Baseball.
That's awesome, man. Kirby, do you want to jump in there?
Sure. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. Super excited to meet all the panelists as well. But yeah, I would say my story or journey to sports actually begins with basketball. So growing up a basketball player, when I think about my experience to date, being an athlete has definitely just kind of guided what my passions were and just kind of how I've brought athletics into how I approach my career now. And whether I liked it or not at the time, my first experience in sports was because I wasn't able to play one summer and tore my ACL. So had to figure out what to do for a summer and did a shadowing experience at the NFL Players Association. And really grateful for that learning experience, because what it taught me was that even though I was not on the court, there was a way for me to stay in sports and really impact and be close to, speaking to a consumer that had a similar experiences as me as an athlete or looked like me as a person of color. And I really loved that intersection of being able to do that through sport and through storytelling. So kind of ran with that from there, played 4 years of basketball at Harvard and did some sports internships while there at the Patriots and at Under Armour, both in marketing, which sent the second light bulb off of my head that, hey, I kind of like this marketing thing. I was studying sociology in school, wasn't sure where exactly to apply it, but just kind of bringing that storytelling back into the fold was really exciting to me. So I actually interned at PepsiCo, not in sports, but knew I wanted to be in sports a long time, but really loved that opportunity to really develop those brand management skill sets and kind of through a rotational aspect. That's the goal when you come in full time, to get experience to different brands and different functions in the building. So my first role was on the brand side, and I'm in my second year now. I now work on our MBA partnership. And I think for me, it was interesting. Like, my first role was not sports at Pepsi at all. But I think because I had that intention, I somehow found a way to make that role sports. Was able to authentically, showcase that passion to my manager, to my coworkers, and as things came up, was able to, get a hand on it. But also was able to apply that outside of work. So I have a podcast and platform, Court to Corporate, that highlights the journey of athletes like myself and athletes like Katie, to, really show that being an athlete can really guide your career journey. It's just a new game, and that, a lot of athletes should find power in that when they think about how to navigate what's next. So that's my journey to sports and what I'm doing now.
Awesome. I'll close the loop on this topic here. Pleasure to meet my co-participants. Avish, thank you and the team for putting this together. It's an amazing concept for a great cause. And major shout out to Kirby making the front office sports Rising 25. So congrats on that. Absolutely. So as far as for me, mine's a bit of a winding road. Honestly, I didn't know what I was going to do. I played sports growing up, and I was fortunate enough to be good at baseball. Worked out for a few professional teams, went to play college ball, and then realized that, I wasn't going to be able to buy my mom the house on the hills coming out of college for a big baseball contract. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do when I graduated. I really didn't have it figured out. And I did a lot of different things. I was a mortgage broker for a little bit. This is right around the downturn of the housing recession. I did door-to-door sales for a little bit. Literally, I was knocking on doors for the commercial or residential, trying to get them to change their electricity provider. And I got a call one day from a professor that just took a liking to me in one of my business classes and said, "Hey, I have an alum. She works at the Jets and they're looking for an intern. Are you interested?" And I said, absolutely. That was my first introduction to the industry and the business of sports off the field. And it was truly an aha moment for me. I got a chance to interact with and just see the side of the business that we just don't have visibility into in terms of, how the marketing, the operations, events, ticket sales, general managers, et cetera. And again, my mind just exploded. And that's when I realized the light bulb went off in my head. And I realized that I wanted to be in work in sports. So I started to do research on a few different people. Mike Tannenbaum was the general manager of the Jets at the time. And I thought I wanted to be a GM. That's what I wanted to do. I realized that a lot of the GMs either played or had some type of higher education degree, right? Some had their law degree, some had their MBA. Analytics was a big thing in sports at that time. That was the introduction of sabermetrics and all that, analytical side of the game. And I realized, okay, I should probably go get my higher education degree of some sort. I thought I was going to go the law route. Law is a little too tedious for me. I get bored very, very quickly and realized I wasn't going to be able to enjoy that aspect of the business. And then I came across the sports business administration degree from a graduate standpoint. And, Ohio University, University of Massachusetts Amherst, Oregon, there's a few great programs. And I was very blessed and fortunate enough to get accepted to a few and decided to go to Ohio University. The reality is that these programs don't get a lot of Dominican kids from Brooklyn, New York applying to their programs, right? So I got a chance to go to Ohio. 2 months into the program, I was just trying to make an impression on an alum. And on a call, he was with the Phillies, and on a call, he expressed some challenges they were having developing their Latin players. And I was just trying to earn myself an internship, right? So I put together this best practices document that research on what the Yankees were doing and all these other teams were doing. And they invited me down for a day to shadow him. Went down, and at the end of the trip, he offered me a job, which was totally blew my mind. I was 2 months into a 2-year program. So had a conversation with my family and even spoke with him and said the way I had to talk to my director of the program because, we did a lot to get me to come to the program. And his response was, what if I told you we already spoke with him? And I think it's just a testament of the program at Ohio University and how supportive they are of their students. So I left school, took the job, moved down to Clearwater, Florida. That's where the minor league operations is based out of. And 2 days into the job, I realized this wasn't for me. It was a complete heartbreak. Loved working with the athletes. My job was essentially to develop acculturation programs for the Latin players within our system. So we had players in the minor league system in the U.S., but then we also had 2 academies, one in Dominican Republic and one in Venezuela. My job was to get them ready for life in America. They thought that I was young enough that I could relate to the players, but old enough that and mature enough that I can do my job and be responsible and report what I needed to report. Realized it wasn't for me. It just didn't fit my personality. It's more of a job for an introvert. I wanted to spread my wings. I wanted to be aggressive. And I went back to school. And that's when I discovered that I need to be in sales. So I started out in ticket sales for the New York Yankees, got an opportunity coming out of the program, and then I wanted to be in sponsorship and had the traditional challenges of making that transition over. There's a lot of similarities to those two sides of the business, but very different in terms of how you manage the clientele base and the language that's spoken from a marketing standpoint, from a conceptual sell to the ticketing and the emotional and the transactional sale. So I had to learn that very quickly and kind of build a case for myself. And been at Major League Soccer, been with legends, and now I'm currently at the Players Tribune.
All right, those are some fantastic stories. So what I would say is there's a few things that I took away. A lot of these stories are non-conventional in a way. With Kirby, if I go back to you, you kind of played 4 years at Harvard, created a podcast and platform to support athletes, and it took you through numerous roles. Jose, you were a door-to-door salesperson for electricity providers, but you got a call for an internship with the Jets and you worked your way up. Katie, you pitched the Giants when you were at Gum Gum. And Lou, you had a friend that worked at MLB Fan Cave and you kind of didn't get the job, but like you continued progressing there and you went to real estate, and there's a lot of different transitions. So anyone out there that's listening, there's a lot of different ways to break into the sports industry. And there's 4 prime examples right here. And I think even if I share my story real quick, I was actually starting a conference at the University of Toronto when I was a student, and it was all around sports marketing. There wasn't an opportunity there to explore this as a field. Cold called, emailed the CEO of the Toronto Blue Jays at the time. He actually responded to me as an 18-year-old kid and invited me over to have coffee with him. 4 months later, he became the first sponsor of our conference. He actually brought me in to be a sponsorship intern at the Toronto Blue Jays. And I got to meet a lot of great people. So there's a lot of ways to break into the industry in your first role. But I kind of want to talk to like intangibles and things that you've learned in all of those different roles. So, if we start with you, Lou, like, is there anything that you've taken from those previous roles and you've picked up, whether that be on the real estate side or, with other roles that you're applying to MLB now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch. I'm trying. I guess I could try to narrow down a couple of key takeaways. I think in any environment, you should be one that is willing to roll up your sleeves and do the smallest task, but do it really well, right? I think we all have job descriptions. We all have jobs, and we're hired based on job descriptions and conversations that we've had leading up to being hired. But once you're in the job, I think it's important to make it your own and take it to the next level. So that's something that, in all the places I've worked, I think I've tried to just make sure that I've made an impact and I've brought value on a daily basis. I think, if you bring value to a role, and whether it's working on a huge project or something small, like taking notes after a status call, you want to do that better than anyone else does, right? Like you want to be the person that they think of when they need something, and you're the guy to do it. They're thinking of you because of the way, that you take it to the next level and your consistency with it. So bringing value on a consistent basis is something that I've always tried to, kind of do in each role. And then as far as like, what I've taken away, there's so many great people out there. In my career, I've been fortunate enough to come across a lot of them, and a lot of ones that have helped me along the way. I think my career story, as far as when I started in the full-time space, each of the jobs I've had has been a result of someone I've worked directly with, either during or before that job. When I was at the Islanders, I worked closely with the guys in Brooklyn that were working on moving the team into Barclays Center. And I had gotten really close with them, and then, position opened up over there and I made my way over to Brooklyn. I was working on the American Express account for 3 years at the Brooklyn Nets, on top of moving the Islanders in, and working on the Amex business for that team as well. And having, done a good job in the account, I was able to roll that into a job that was passed along to me at American Express. Wasn't at Amex for a long time because a couple months in there, I had a mentor of mine reach out to me. He was working on this incredible project for a real estate development company. And I saw it as a great opportunity to, work with someone that I believed in. and it ended up being an incredible decision, and was able to go to the Howard Hughes Corporation and work on something that not many people get to work on. And it's revitalizing a section of New York City, and trying to put your brand hat on and figure out how partnering with these incredible sponsors are going to enhance the experience for New Yorkers and tourists that come visit the city. So it was something that was really unique from there. And then with Major League Baseball, I had somebody that used to work for me at the Nets. One of my close friends passed the job opportunity over to me, and I was open to the conversation, and ended up being something that worked out. For me, baseball has always been that passion. So I think, again, the key takeaways are they're great people, and I think if you're open to making those connections and just being your authentic self, on top of being very consistent and bringing value to your role each day, it'll take you pretty far.
Katie, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. Lou, I think that's awesome and great advice for everyone. For me, some of the things I've learned away, just in terms of important skill sets, I think you can take something from every job and apply it in any which way. Public speaking was something I learned. I started to learn how to really do that as someone who was actually really shy for a long time growing up. Learned how to do that when I was part of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. And as I got more and more into working in sponsorship, there were a ton of meetings that I had to attend, or even had to learn how to lead. And just having that skill of being comfortable and speaking about your role, or your product, or your service that you're offering, that has been something huge for me. And it's part of the reason why I was able to get the job at the Giants. Some of the other things that I've learned along the way, simple things like even taking meeting minutes. Something I learned at the MAC, the commissioner had me take meeting minutes, and that ended up being a really useful skill, because it was learning the key points of a meeting that people would have to either follow up on, or whether it be other people that you were working with or yourself, and knowing what was the next thing to come out of this meeting. You never want to have a meeting where you're sitting there and saying, okay, we just met, and did anything get accomplished after this? So that's been another useful skill for me, where every job that I've been at, I've learned just simple little things that you might not think is a big deal, but it turns into something a lot bigger and more useful. So when I think about, as a salesperson, think about having a meeting with a client, if I know the action items to follow up on, and do the follow through, I know that I'll end up being successful. So those are just key important things, like simply following up with other people and making sure you understand what's happening is super important. Another thing I'd say that I learned, and I'm learning now actually at the Giants, is don't be afraid to ask questions. Even I'm a director. This is the 4th job that I have at a school. I've been working in the industry for about 8 years now, and I don't know it all, and that's definitely okay. When I started at the Giants, I felt like I was going from a senior in high school to a freshman in college again, where it's like you're a senior, you know you're at the top of your game, you feel confident, you know the product really well, and then you start at a new place and you're like, wait, I thought I would grew a lot. I thought I knew everything that I needed to know. And now I'm at this new place where, okay, I need to learn how they operate here. I need to learn more about their product and about the league rules and how to really operate a little bit differently going back into sponsorship. So I think the thing is that you can learn something at every job that you're at, no matter what position that you have. And even when you get into a new role and you think you're moving up and along in your career, there's going to be some cases where you feel like you're back at the beginning again, where you need to keep learning, and that's totally okay. And then the last piece of advice, or something that I learned along the way actually, was when I got my MBA at Iona College, and that was learn what job function that you really like. So everyone wants to be in sports, and that is something that's great. And I was working in as an account manager, and really didn't feel like it was clicking for me. But I knew I wanted to be in sports. And through getting my MBA, took a class where I really learned, okay, what skills am I good at? What skills do I really like doing day to day? And it ended up being clear as day that, you know, I should really go into sales. And it was something I was afraid to do, but learning that I had the abilities to be a salesperson and knew what went into that job function allowed me to then make a pivot and work at a different organization and give that job function a real shot. So I hope that you guys can take some advice from that and take something to heart from that and apply it to your lives. But really just don't be afraid to ask questions and know that wherever you are, as you're going up the career ladder, you're always going to learn something valuable and take that with you.
Kirby, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. So I would, my first piece of advice would be, I think coming into the sports industry or just any career in general, it's, if you're early on, it's intimidating almost to feel like you need to have a set plan and I'm going to graduate, I'm going to go work here for X amount of years, then I might go get a graduate degree, then I might do this, I might do that. And that becomes really overwhelming. And as we all know, nothing ever goes as planned. But I do think things can go as intended. And what I mean by that is that it's really important, and I think even more valuable, to have a set intention early on, kind of about, you know, what truly energizes you from an industry standpoint and also a function standpoint, as Katie just mentioned. And I think when you kind of really gain that sense of self and have a strong grounding and foundation, then you can strategically pinpoint ways that you can either apply it in your day-to-day of where you already are, kind of create a new space, and kind of build your own narrative and brand in that area. And then also intentionally network and build a really strong base of people in the direction that you want to go. And I think for me, kind of going back to what you highlighted as well, like I started in marketing because I was passionate about marketing. And at the same time, I took the time to reflect on my experience as an athlete. And that allowed me to take a first step and figure out, you know, maybe I want to stay close to sports right now. I'm not there right now, but I could start court to corporate. I can start an Instagram page. And that led me to make a podcast. Then I had a website. Now I'm writing an ebook for it. You know, so like things evolve, things gain momentum, but if you really have an intention, you can figure out where to start. And then my second piece of advice is be active in how you network. So I think we all know that networking is like really important. I don't think anybody needs to have that point beat on the head, but be intentional, once again, active in how you pursue it. So one thing that I picked up from interviewing people on my podcast was this guy, he played football at Penn, he's now in finance. And when he was trying to get an internship in finance, he had a network tracker, a list of 300 names, detailed, you know, segmented by what did I talk to them about, you know, how can they potentially help me in the future, who's the mutual contacts. And the one that I built was not as robust, but just like approaching networking in that sense, not that it's transactional, but just being more intentional about it so that when you reach out to people, you can find a mutual point of connection or a story of, or things that you can relate to. And then also just kind of bake it into your personal development plan. So my two pieces would be intentional, and you can really maximize what you're doing in the moment or create something new for yourself. And then also just be intentional in your networking.
Jose, my friend.
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, I think about my winding road, how I got to this point. There's, I think, a few things that have stayed true throughout. One, my question to all listeners is, what's the vision, right? I think secondly, once you understand what the vision is, you know, how can you instill confidence to go after that vision and make it, you know, reality? And that usually comes through preparation. Building a plan, which is an adaptable plan. Like the vision changes, life changes. You get a lot of things thrown at you, and that you weren't planning for, and it's okay to adjust. And then also, you know, how are you making progress, right? So for me, when I broke into the industry, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to work in sports. And I think to Katie and Lou's point, my approach was just outwork people around me, right? Make sure that I was reliable, make sure that I was punctual, and make sure that I showed that I wanted to be there. And I think, for those that are listening, that are looking to break into the industry on the beginning stages of your career, you have to remind yourself, and I learned this very early on, is that everyone that has the SVP title or the C-suite title, they've been in your shoes before, more than likely, right? That we're young, ambitious, trying to figure it out. And I think sometimes we forget that, right? We kind of treat people or put them on a pedestal because of this title that they have. And it creates some type of, makes you think that they're not approachable or not personable. And I think when you, to Katie's point, are able to ask questions, you realize that people are also human and they're willing to share and help. So for me, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And when I just wanted to break into the industry, which I did. I was fortunate enough to do. And I tried to be the best at everything I was asked to do. And then when I was done doing what I was asked to do, it was like, okay, how can I find more opportunities or more things to do by asking for more work, right? Or more opportunities. And I think everyone I worked with understood that. Along the way, you build relationships with people. And I think you start realizing what resonates with you, right? What you're good at, what you want to do. And it's almost like a process of elimination, right? Like I realized, okay, I don't want to do operations, nothing against the people operations, but I didn't want to do operations. I wasn't into marketing at the time, and just easily gravitated towards sales. And then at that point, I had the vision, right? And then it was about, okay, how do I bring that to reality? And what's the ultimate goal, which was, to become a leader of a sales organization or a division within a sports property. And what you realize, I started in ticket sales. And as I mentioned, as you get more experience and more exposed to the business and more exposure to different types of people with different experiences, your thinking broadens, your horizons broaden, how you think, how you process information broadens, especially if you're a student of the game in the sense of just a student and learning. So that's what I meant by adaptable planning, right? Make sure that, yes, you have a plan, but your plan can change, and that's okay. Don't feel that if something were to change, that you're no longer making progress or you have to start over. That's not necessarily the case. So I think in a nutshell, for me, again, is identify the vision. As soon as you can figure that out, the better you'll be, because you'll be able to attack whatever you're going after very aggressively, and have no regrets. I feel that way about the situation I had with baseball. When I left that part of the industry, I thought I wanted to do, but today I'm full speed ahead because I know what I thought I wanted to do. I know today it wasn't for me. So I'm able to move forward with conviction. Again, make sure that you have confidence, and with confidence comes preparation. Don't cut corners. Identify what skills are needed for the role you want. And if you don't have those skills, develop the skills. Just take the time. Thanks to the internet, you can do a quick few Google searches, YouTube videos, or if you're willing to go to school or get whatever type of learning or even mentoring as well. I think the last piece I would add that I heard most of the group speak to, and I know Kirby closed with this, is on the networking side. I think it's really important to make sure you understand that networking has in my opinion, has a negative connotation to it, because it can be looked at as one-sided. And I think it's very important to keep in mind that the networking piece means that it's a relationship, and with a relationship, there's an exchange of value, right? While you're helping me with X, I am helping you with Y. And the more that you're willing to give, I think the more you'll actually get from people. So for example, if you happen to get 30 minutes with an executive that you never met, you reached out to them on LinkedIn and they're willing to give you their time, there's probably something that they said in that conversation that you can turn around and offer value back to them, right? Whether it be an article they probably say they have trouble sleeping, right? Or they're traveling to the city because they're going on in meetings, right? There's something, if you're listening closely, there's probably something you could take away from that conversation that you can showcase that you're leading with value, which is probably going to encourage that person to help you and drive value back to you. Because you're probably one of, and this you learn in sales very quickly, you're probably one of thousands of people reaching out to that one person for their time or for whatever you're asking for. So along with what everyone said in the group, those are my key takeaways.
So guys, that was unreal. I know we're at a 45-minute session, but we're going to definitely extend it here. So there's a few things I kind of wanted to take away from that, because there was a lot of content, but I want to kind of summarize a little bit. So, Kirby, learning through people's stories and people's perspectives can really open up doors for unconventional paths and learning about other people's successes and failures, right? So that's an important takeaway. Be intentional. Create things if they don't actually exist already. Those are some things I took away from your story. Katie, like, don't let any task or role be beneath you. I think that's really interesting, because you're taking meeting minutes or you're doing medial tasks that a lot of interns might have, like, they might roll their eyes at the beginning. They're like, why am I doing this? I think there's so many things we can learn when we're doing those tasks that prepare us for roles in the future. So I'm super glad to hear that from your side. And then Jose, like, man, there's so much to take away. I would say, your vision, outworking people, don't put people on a pedestal when it comes to their title. This is a great example here that, you guys are you're all very young, you're all very successful. You're all similar to the people in the comments that are, working and continuing to figure out their careers. So don't put people on pedestals. That's a super important takeaway. And the last thing I wanted to touch on was communicating value, because I think that's where you ended off. How do you do that? How do you communicate value, when you're networking with someone for the first time?
I'm assuming you're asking me?
I'm asking you all.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I will start if that's okay. I think sales, when I first got into sales, you're thinking about, how can I make what I have to offer sound amazing so that this person wants to buy what I have to offer. And then as you develop and you progress and you get some wins on the board and you get a chance to really listen to other people that have been in the industry, I have learned that sales is less about selling and more about educating. And what I mean by that is that if I'm asking the right questions, I understand what it is that you need to get better at X, and I'm able to formulate what I can offer to fill the void that X is, right? So, and you have to understand, your product is not always going to be for everyone, right? So you have to find the right clients and make sure that you can serve those clients and grow with those clients. And how I tie that back to your question is, if you're asking the right questions, you're going to understand where is you can fill that void, again, whatever X is. And I think that's where the value is, right? And that's across the board, whether it be you're trying to convince as kids, we were trying to convince our parents or our mom to let us go somewhere that they didn't want us to go, right? But once you understood why she didn't want you to go there, and if you can make her feel peaceful, or at least provide some peace of mind on understanding that that wasn't something to worry about, it then changes the conversation. So my point is, ask the right questions, listen first, and if you're listening, you will be able to identify how you can add value to that other person.
That's awesome. Is there anything else any of you would like to add to that?
I have one build. Love Jose's advice. My one thing I would say is come with a story. So everyone here, even everyone listening, we often receive requests of like wanting to connect to learn more about your role and like what you do. But I always appreciate, and I realize that when I reach out to people, they really appreciate when you reach out and you show that you kind of looked at their story, you looked at their journey, and you're pointing out things that either you resonate with, you really aspire to be, or can relate to. So coming instead of, I want to hear more about your job, it's more so, hey, I'm currently, working at, PepsiCo, working in MBA partnerships. I've seen you've had XYZ roles. I'm really passionate about learning about these 3 areas for this reason. I'd love to talk to you to learn more about your journey and how you've navigated to that point. And I think really coming in with that granularity, even though it may take a little bit more time, goes a really long way. Because I think ultimately people want to help. Even if you feel like you can't provide value just yet, people get excited about helping you, especially if you know where you're going. So don't be afraid to just kind of be straight up about it and what you want to learn about.
Great. Katie, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I think, I mean, totally agree with Jose on listening and educating and what Kirby had to say on knowing your story. One other thing I'd add is just really be authentic with that story and what you're looking for when you network with someone. Like, know that you want to network with that person for a reason. Either it's mentorship, advice, looking for direction in terms of how to navigate through the organization that person's with. Just know what you're really looking for, and be authentic with and genuine. Sometimes when you try to network with someone, there might not be that connection there. You know, anytime you build a relationship, sometimes not everyone is going to be the right fit, and that's okay. So just be authentic and genuine with what you're looking for. And if the other person doesn't really respond to that, that's okay, because somebody else will. So just be true to yourself and know that not everyone is going to really open up and be that connection. And unfortunately, they're not always going to be there to listen and talk to you or help, but there are definitely people out there. So just stay true to yourself, be authentic, and really be open and honest about what you're looking for and who you are. Because the more someone feels like they know you or there's a connection, like say, for example, you're a swimmer and you mentioned that to me, like that automatically to me, I'm like, oh my God, no way. That's great. Let's chat. So if you can find that mutual connection with someone, that also helps to build that relationship early on too.
Yeah, I mean, guys, those are all fantastic points. I think what's interesting about this particular event, right, Sponsorship Connect, is we have 500 people that bought tickets to hear us speak and other speakers like us speak. So we know you're invested, and this may pertain specifically to this moment right now, but there's 191 people watching us right now. If you found something valuable in what we said, reach out to us, because you have our ear right now. And the fact that you're listening to us and listening to the advice that we're sharing with you through our experience and through teachings of our mentors and others that we've experienced throughout the industry, we're happy to do that. That's why we're doing this right now. So this right now is an opportunity for you to reach out to us and make that connection. Do your research on all the speakers that you're going to be listening to over the next couple of days. I know I've researched Katie and Kirby before this, because we actually haven't met before, but Jose and Avish, we know each other. But I knew a little bit about their background going into this. And, I know that after this, I'm going to be following up with them just to, try to build a relationship with them and continue to build my network, because their stories to me are valuable. So if you find value in what we're saying, reach out to us. That's why we're doing this.
Lou, I love that call to action. I feel like that's great takeaways for a lot of people listening. But you touched upon mentorship and building those relationships. So I kind of wanted to bring it back to that. How do you build a mentorship organically? I feel like a lot of times we're looking for mentors, or we're looking for people's support, especially when we start off in the industry. So I'll bring it back to you. How do we build mentorship relationships naturally?
So I can speak from my experience. There's two major ways in which I've kind of acquired a small group of mentors in my life that have been really helpful. Back when I was at Fordham and just started interning at the Fan Cave, I actually met a fellow intern of mine that was a Fordham undergrad, same year as me. His name is Mike Sansaran. He's actually a colleague of mine now at MLB. But we were talking and we were kind of discussing the story of how we got the internship, and both realized that, we had gotten it in an unconventional way. So we were thinking, Fordham really doesn't have anything like this here. So over the course of the next 2 years at Fordham, we built what's now the Business of Sports Society, which has hundreds of members, and we put on speaker panels and company visits. So through building my network in making that organization happen for the university, I was able to meet a bunch of people, and people that I wanted to be one day in my sports career that have become mentors of mine. One of those people being the person I had to pass my resume along to when I needed a job after graduating. So, I think if you're networking and you can have those organic conversations, or, maybe you can help add value to an event like, Avish, I know I reached out to you for this and said, hey, let me know if I can help with adding any additional speakers. I think if you're able to add that value, and find, people in your life that can kind of teach you something, even if you're not able to build something, I think that's one way to kind of acquire a mentor. And then, when you do have those internship opportunities and you're working for, different organizations, I would say network with anyone in the office and kind of sit down with them, grab a coffee, figure out, if you have some things in common, and if they have an interesting story that kind of inspires you, and maybe it happens organically that way. People are open to giving advice, and I've always been one, to what Katie said before, you have to be one that wants to learn, and I've always been like that. So I think it has helped me kind of gain mentorship through asking questions and through wanting to get to know somebody in an authentic way. So that's what's worked for me.
Katie, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. Mentorship is, it's interesting because sometimes you'll connect with someone and you'll want to have that mentorship relationship, but sometimes it's important to ask that person if they can be a mentor. So there are plenty of people who I've worked with and bosses who have been fantastic that I stay in touch with and talk to. And there are some people where I'll ask them, hey, do you have time to invest in me, to really be my mentor? And to ask them specific questions and let them know, what I'm actually looking for in terms of that relationship. I think that's super important because as you go along in your career, you're going to build relationship with a ton of people and people who you can go to advice for. But sometimes I think a mentor is a little bit different. If you're looking to make a change in your career, you're looking to learn something more or advance in your career, learn something from someone else in a different department. Or if you're dealing with a certain situation at work, it's good to identify specifically, what you want to go to a mentor for and what you want to go to someone else that you just have a good relationship with. So I'd say just make sure that you identify who you want to be a mentor for you and ask them if they have the time to dedicate to that, and know what you want to get out of that relationship. I think that's really important because there's definitely a lot of people who I've stayed in close contact with and have great relationships with, but I haven't actually asked them to be a mentor. And I do have some people who I have asked, and those relationships, they're a little bit more hands-on, where it's not like we're going, every 6 months without hearing from each other. So I think just identify who you want that person to be and take the time to ask them, but really think about what you're expecting of that relationship and make sure that you just have an idea of, what you want to ask and what you want to get from them.
Great. Kirby and Jose, if you wanted to add anything there, now's a great time.
Yeah, Kirby.
Okay, cool. So 2 things. My first piece of advice would be to just be persistent in the follow-up. So I think about internships that I had like at Patriots and Under Armour, and people that were my managers when I was interning, or maybe they were the directors in that role. And I got to know them through the internship. We didn't have a mentorship type relationship during that 3-month period, but I've kept in touch with them as I graduated, as I started at Pepsi, as I started court to corporate, anything, right? Like just little things go a long way. And those things have now evolved into mentorship relationships. So, don't discount the relationships that you already have, even if they're not at that mentorship level yet. Like just keep people informed. People want to hear how you're doing. It doesn't always have to be a phone call, but, just keep people up to date, and things may eventually evolve into a mentorship relationship. So, just really take true audit of what you've built through your experiences, and maintain those. My second piece of advice would be to really build a board of advisors. That's great advice that I got, I feel like last year, and I think it kind of changed how I thought about mentorship. So, to Katie's point, as much as you need to be intentional about asking someone to be your mentor, also think about the different type of mentors that you want to have. Maybe I need a mentor for marketing advice. Maybe I need a mentor for sports advice specifically, or maybe I need a mentor that also has a platform in addition to their full-time job, right? Like there's different types of mentors based on the different aspects of who you are, because it's not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. So, really think about the different types of areas that you want to grow, what types of advice that you need, and the different aspects of who you are, and think about who in your network can really align with that and provide guidance for you.
Yeah, all great advice. I think, my relationship or experience with mentorship has been interesting in the sense that I have found that some mentorship relationships have become naturally, right? Some people that I worked for, others I had to seek out and make the ask. But I've always found that the ones that have been reliable, and I still have today, have been built off the back of a relationship, a genuine relationship, right? Where the person truly knows who I am, and I can kind of, I don't have to be, there's a funny, one of my mentors says, she would always ask me, like, who am I talking to right now? Am I talking to Brooklyn Jose, or am I talking to corporate Jose? Which one am I talking to? And, I went through that journey just trying to figure out who I am and who I want to present myself as to the world, as I developed from a corporate standpoint. So I found just being your authentic self, which I know I heard Katie and a few others say, and building a relationship. What I would also advise listeners to is that understand that you're asking for a real commitment from someone when you're asking them to be your mentor. And not everyone's willing to make that commitment. Some will say yes just because you asked, and their actions will show that they're not committed. Or some will be, honest and say, hey, I don't think I can be your mentor, but I can help you with X, Y, Z. And that's okay. And what I'm calling that out to just, again, reference and really emphasize the importance of having a relationship with this individual. The other thing I would also say is you obviously won't be able to have a relationship with every person because it takes spending time and trust and all that. But for someone to help you, they don't necessarily have to be your mentor, right? Like you could just ask a question. Hey, I noticed that you're really good at A, B, or C, right? What advice would you give to me in this situation, or this is the situation I'm dealing with. What would you advise me to do? So there are times that I've been able to have like one-off conversations that have been extremely helpful, that I didn't necessarily have to have that mentor relationship with that person just because of the commitment it requires. But for the mentors, I think Kirby hit on the head as well, building an advisory board and identifying, okay, what are the verticals that I need most help with, and who are the people that I could lean on for these things. But I also think it's really important is to have a true relationship with your mentors, because that's where they're going to be honest and be able to be most helpful.
Yeah, I mean, this was a great conversation. I feel like it's kind of unfortunate that we're kind of running out of time here, but whether it be mentorship or learning about people's perspectives, like non-conventional routes to the sports industry, there's a lot of takeaways in this panel. So I just wanted to thank you guys for sharing your story, sharing some advice, and allowing people to learn from your experiences.
I want to know what's happening on that screen back there, Avish, my man. You look like you're in air traffic control.
It's just the headphones, my friend. I got a cool mic here too, but that's pretty much it. But yeah, no, we got everything covered. This is awesome. I think there's going to be a lot of questions from a lot of eager young professionals, and I think the sound advice that you've offered in this session is invaluable. So thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it, and thanks again.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for putting this together.
All right, guys, we're going to join on the last webinar link now. So I'll see you on the last link to learn a little more about brand marketing.